Alright everybody, welcome back to the next video. As you can see, I am in the middle of the nature. I'm in one of the most peaceful places, most tranquil places that I've been able to find so far on my journeys in nature. I'm close to the water. Can't really move the camera right now. I wish y'all could see what I'm looking at, but it's very beautiful, very perfect. Anyways, we're getting ready to get on with yet another video. Today's topic is going to be about the obstacles that you all should expect whenever you begin this practice of meditation, what to look out for. And it's just the overall message of encouragement from me to you to not be discouraged on your path, on your in your practice, in your experience. All right, so why do I say that? Why do I say not to be discouraged before I even talk about what the obstacles are? It's because it is 100% inevitable that you to avoid obstacles on this path. When you are trying to learn how to meditate, you're going to see that sitting here and just being is a lot harder than it looks. It's a lot more complex than how it would appear if you ever see me meditate, if you've seen anybody ever meditate. Especially coming from a society where spiritual practices, not spiritual talk, but spiritual practices are not encouraged, they're not known, and they're not taught. So when you're in a world like that, you're gonna inevitably come out with a mind, a spirit, and a soul that is relatively chaotic. When I say chaotic, that means lacking in order, lacking in structure. All right. So what I mean, giving more examples, is put it to you like this. So I've talked about meditation in nature multiple times before. Finished a couple of videos on that. If you haven't seen that, I would recommend watching my previous video. Side note, recommend watching my videos in order from the first up into the most recent one, because I go further and further each time into the depths of meditation. Anyways, I was saying the minds of the people now in a society like this are very imbalanced. They're very fear-driven, and there's a reason behind that. Behind the reason why a lot of people are so afraid. A lot of people carry a lot of fear in their spirits, and that is something that should not be so prevalent. It's something that should not be so common. Anxiety, depression, all these very common phrases that you hear people say should not be such commonplace. The reason why it is because I've talked about this before. I don't want to jump all over the place, but the spiritual programmings, the negative spiritual programmings, and the lack of spiritual cultivation. So whenever you start to meditate, whenever you start to try and correct it, you're going to have years upon years upon years of conditionings that are already inside of the way that you think, the way that you talk, the way that you act, the way that you operate as an entire being. Those conditionings are like hardwired into your spirit now. So with that being said, once you start to meditate, you're going to see that all of the conditionings that you are currently trying to overcome are going to make themselves known again. Make themselves known again in multiple ways. Whatever it is that you know to be your vice, to be your issues, your conditionings, your fears, all of that is not going to disappear from just one session of meditation. And if anything, it's going to become more and more prevalent, because when you start to meditate, when you start to be still, your awareness is automatically going to heighten. All right. So when that heightening occurs and you're in your meditative state, you're going to see you're in your zone, you're in your meditative state. You go deeper within your own self and you start to experience the effects of it. But your thoughts of fear are going to begin to permeate within. Your thoughts of fear. So, for example, I've talked about this in my last video: the fear of the insects, the fear of ants. If you're outside, most people are afraid of these creatures. So your mind's gonna automatically going to be, you know, not focused. It's not gonna be focus is something that you're gonna have to develop. It's gonna be focused on whatever it is that is in your mind already, something that already is within your conditionings. All right. See, there's an ant on me right now. It's pretty big. Anyways, all right. Like I was saying, your conditionings are going to make themselves very well known to you when you start to meditate. It might even seem as though it's more prevalent now that you have begun to meditate. But like I said at the beginning, first few sentences, don't be discouraged. This is just the manifestation of the fact that your awareness is heightened. If it seems as though you meditate and you sit there and you're like, man, my first few meditations, they weren't very good. Like, all I could notice was how chaotic my mind is, how out of place and out of structure it is. All the nonsense that has permeated within to my mind is now being made more manifest to me, and that in itself is a sign of development. And here's the reason why. Once you are able to see that for yourself, once you're able to observe yourself, observe your mind, observe your conditionings, and see it and distance yourself from it and speak about it in the manner that you just did in that example, you're already taking a step away from it, because you've identified yourself outside of these realm of these thoughts. It's like, man, these thoughts just, it's just so bad, it's just so chaotic, it's just so weird. Why is it this way? That's your first sign of heightened awareness. It's not something to be discouraged of. All you're doing now is you're becoming more aware of the work that you have to do within yourself. All right. So that was a good way to put that. Yeah. So keep that in mind. That is not anything to be discouraged about. It's just another parallel would be like going in the gym for the first day. You ain't lifted in a long time. You try and lift up the 35-pound dumbbells to do your bicep curls, and you can't get it. But then after a week, after 2 weeks, you're starting to be able to get your reps in. It's the same thing, repetition. Repetition is the key to this, and many other things, but it's the key to this also. So, for example, going back to that same example, you meditate, you notice, I couldn't stop thinking about the ants. I couldn't stop thinking about my career. I couldn't stop thinking about work. I couldn't stop thinking about my children. I couldn't stop thinking about the potential of a bear coming up from out of the woods and coming to eat you. Stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of different things that become made manifest, and it's going to seem, to be very out of place, and it will be. Day 2, oh no, I'll go like this. Week 2. Week 2 of continuously meditating day in, I won't say day in, day out, but at least once a day, every day, 2 weeks straight. You're on week 2. You see, all right, I see what's happening now. These thoughts is coming, but I've already experienced the peace and the balance that is deeper within myself than the realm of these thoughts. So that means, all right, you're further distancing yourself from the imposed conditionings. I've already talked about conditionings, but now you are becoming separated from them little by little by little by little by little. By doing the root meditation. I've talked about root meditation. It's also called mid-ob in the Kemetic spiritual systems. I'm going to talk more and more and more about that as we get farther down the line. But the more you do these practices, the more you're going to disconnect from your fear conditionings, the more you're going to free yourself from these conditionings and see that they were limitations that you put on yourself. You know, it's kind of like walking around with, you know how you see these army people walking around with big old bags that seem like they're full with like 50, 100-pound weights or whatever, or 200 pounds. That's like the bag is like your limitations. As you meditate, you slowly start to slip the straps off your shoulders, and eventually you drop the weight off, and you see that the weight was not necessary in the first place. All right, so that's a good way to say what it is to expect. Um, to be more specific, to dive into why, because you know it's one thing to explain what it is that's going to happen, but it's another thing to explain why it happens. Why is all this fear in me? Why is there seemingly another voice that's telling me to do the opposite of what it is that I'm telling you to do? Why is it that whenever I meditate, it seems like there's another power within me trying to come literally fight against me? Why is that? What is that? These are all very good questions. I don't want to talk. I do want to talk for a long time, but I'm trying to separate these videos so that I can give you segment by segment by segment. But a brief answer to that question is lies in the fact that there is a higher self, there is a lower self. This has been explained in multiple different ways. It's been not explained, but what's the word? Defined in multiple different ways. I talked about this. I touched on this in one of my very first videos, where I said that this lower self is Satan within us, the devil within us, the desires to do the lowest, the animal based, the evil acts, the foolish acts, the counterproductive, the detrimental, the self-destructive acts within us. The compulsion to do all these things is present in every single one of us. And that has been defined as the devil. That has been defined as Satan. But what it really is, instead of throwing these weird names around, and hold on. All right. Instead of just throwing these weird names around and not really attaching any substance to them, here's what we're gonna do. That what I just said, saying all that, that is the manifestation of your lower self. You can use all these different names. This word Satan has an awful connotation to it because of these religions, but I must use the word your lower self, your animal spirit. That's what it is. We have an animal spirit and we have our divine spirit. We have our that which makes us in alignment with God. You know, I won't get too much into that, but I'm just gonna leave it there for now. We have our lower self, we have our animal spirit, we have our higher self, we have our divine spirit, our godly spirit, our completely heightened vibration spirit. There's two aspects of it. The duality is necessary for existence. I don't want to get into. I'm going to get into it deeper and deeper. That's probably not going to be for another few videos. But what I'm doing now is telling you and identifying what it is that's present. We've all probably already established this. I talked about this a little bit in the self-control video. But that lower self, there's a lot of these huge ants around. I'm really not trying to have them crawling all over me right here. Anyways, yeah, that lower self is very real. It's very prevalent, and it's been made manifest in many different ways when you feel as though you kind of just go on autopilot for a second and you do something that you know is self-destructive. And you can kind of fit in the blanks for yourself. I don't need to spend time giving more examples, but that's what it is that we're trying to overcome here. That's what we're trying to realize. It makes it easier to understand now that we realize that there's a duality within us, and if we identify with the higher self, the higher aspect of us, our divinity, our godhood, our the fact that we're gods and goddesses, if we identify with that fact, if we identify with the supreme being within us and not with the animal spirit, we can detach from it. We now realize that we have the ability to say, all right, no, this is a part of this existence and everything, but I don't identify with this. I identify with the God in me. You know, I want to shed this mentality that I have to identify with these lower thoughts, these low vibrations that emanate from within. You can identify with the higher, and in doing meditation, that's exactly what happens. I'm just defining what happens whenever you begin to realize what happens when you meditate. So in other words, when you do this, like I was saying in that past example, you meditate, you start to be like, all right, well, okay, I see now. I have thoughts. At the beginning, I had thoughts that said I can't do this for more than 5 minutes. But now, it's week 3, I'm able to meditate for 20 minutes. So that means that which I identified with and believed in 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago was not real in the first place. What you're realizing and coming to grips with, is the fact that you don't have to identify with the emanations of the animal spirit. All right? It gets further than that, it goes deeper than that, but I'm going to leave that there for now. All right? So, when you meditate, that's probably the main obstacle. The mind itself, it's not even really the mind, it's our animal spirit, it's our conditioning, it's a part of our programming that the supreme being gave us in order for himself to have existence through us. I don't want to get too far into that. That's a topic for another day. But um yeah, simple enough. I'm gonna wrap it up, make sure I didn't miss anything, and we'll close out the video for the day. All right, so like I've said before, your lower self is very prevalent. There are a lot of conditionings in this world, some of them imposed on you, like I've already spoken on, in through the media, through false teachings, through religions, through miseducation all around. Intentional, some; unintentional, some. All these conditionings, all these false beliefs are going to be very prevalent when you start to meditate. They're going to become more prevalent to you as you sit and become more aware of how you operate as a collective. But that's not where you get discouraged and just quit. That's where you continue to detach from and shed those negative conditionings, those conditionings that limit you from your growth, that limit you from your development. All right? And when you do that, you're going to start to slowly begin to identify with the God within you. The more you identify with the God within you, the more you detach from the devil within you. All right? So, yeah, that was good. Came out quite nicely, if I do say so myself. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see. Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I'm going to say don't be discouraged in your meditative journey. Keep on pushing. Keep on fighting your conditionings. If you have fears of whatever, keep on fighting them. Keep on detaching from them, shed them, and eventually you will see that they will go away. Do your B meditation. Do your min ob. Know that there are subtle attacks going on in order to try to condition you to become attached and to identify with your lower self. That is very real. I've talked about that a little bit, but be careful what you watch. Be careful what you accept within your own self as reality. Be careful what you entertain. And be careful how you what you absorb, because your mind absorbs everything, and they know this. That's why they put these subtle attacks in these commercials, in these television shows, in these social media ads, on social media, all over the place. They put it intentionally because your mind and your spirit does not miss anything. Your realm of absorption is much farther and deeper than your individualized focus. All right, it's much farther than that. So I'll leave it at that. If you would like to have a video, not a video, if you would like to do a meditation session with me, be a part of the group classes, have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. My contact information is insuredevolution@gmail, or you can just reach out via the DMs on social media, and we can get started. Please, if you felt compelled, like, share, and yeah, thanks again for coming to a video. See you in the next one.